This is a model or a maquette that I built out of 3/16 inch foam core for the room that I'm painting. And I actually started the painting in this bowl before I made the maquette, but the maquette then helped me work out some of the details of the floor and the lighting and the ceiling. Now that I've begun working out the color for the piece, I want to make a smaller model that I can paint the inside of, that I can then refer to as I add color to my painting. As I've been creating these paintings in hemispheres, one of my inspirations has been the collection of miniature rooms at the Art Institute of Chicago, which were created by Narcissa Niblack Thorne in the 30s. One thing I really love about these rooms is when you're looking into the main space, you also get a tantalizing glimpse into other spaces. When you look through a doorway, you might see a little bit of an adjacent room, or you look through a window and see a little bit of a garden or a landscape or a city. And that seems to create some tension for the viewer. There's this desire to access those spaces, but because you really only have a direct view into that main room, those other spaces ultimately remain mysterious and inaccessible. One specific room that I'm looking at for this particular piece is this 18th century English dining room. And this was patterned after the work of Robert Adam. And I've been looking a lot at his architecture and interior design as I developed the room in this painting. Robert Adam was a Scottish architect in the 18th century. He was working in England and Scotland. The symmetry from floor to ceiling was a hallmark of Robert Adam's design and really helped to structure the space. And the Metropolitan has two rooms created by Robert Adam in England and later purchased by the Metropolitan Museum and moved to New York. This particularly delicate plasterwork or stucco that's decorating the walls and ceiling is something I'm interested in recreating in my room. I'm going to cut out this model on a piece of Arches oil paper. I'm going to be painting this one in acrylic, but I wanted to use something that was fairly thick, like watercolor paper, but also was treated to be less absorbent than just a regular piece of watercolor paper. So here I have my layout gridded out on my paper, and I just need to draw in the doors and make tabs, and I'll cut these out as well after I cut out the main shape. So here are my doors. Now I'm going to score the fold lines with this small sculpting tool so that they fold more easily. These tabs will be folded on the outside of the walls. Now I'm going to mark out some of the details like the design of the floor onto my smaller model here. Now I'm actually going to inscribe this line so that it's making an indentation in the paper, and that way when I paint over it, I'll still be able to see the circle. So I'm just going to press a little bit harder. I'm going to score these straight lines in as well, but I'm going to do it with my sculpting tool instead of with the pencil. I decided to paint this a neutral gray before painting it with the colors that it's ultimately going to be. Partly so that I will have kind of a color for the grout lines between the colors of the tile that I'm going to be painting, sort of a bluish gray and a sort of cream color. And then on the ceiling, I've drawn in the design first, similar to the ceiling on my initial model. And then I use relief outliner to go over the lines. While I was making this model, I wanted to get some of the dimension of that plasterwork or stucco on the ceiling. So I used a relief outliner, and I believe it's used for imitating the leading in stained glass. It's a little bit like piping icing decorations onto a cake. My next step will be to draw out the details on the walls. Now I just want to sketch in these delicate little stucco designs here on the wall. Now I can carefully assemble this to see what it will look like. I'm now ready to start putting the icing on the cake, so to speak. So that plaster work and the moldings I'll indicate with the clear relief paint. The same way that I did the ceiling. I piped it on and it dried clear, and then I went over the lines with a white gesso.